So, welcome everyone. Great to see you. I'm Janine, and we're going to carry on looking at Warrior 3 today, and that's our peak pose for this course. And we're also focusing on finding this mobility, flexibility, strength through our neck and shoulders. So, for today, you're going to need a belt, and you might not have a yoga belt, and that's totally fine. So, if you want to grab yourself a tie or a dressing gown belt or a trouser belt or socks if you don't have any belts, but like kind of socks that you don't mind pulling on, kind of older ones that aren't very special to you. So if you're joining in live and you want to kind of nip off and quickly grab some form of belt, that's fine. And if it's a recording, feel free to stop the recording, go and grab your belt and come back and join back in again. So we're going to start lying down like we did last week. And as you lie down, you just want to choose a position that is really comfortable for you. So that might be lying down on your back with your head on a pillow, maybe your head just flat on the floor. You can have bent knees, you can have straight legs. If you've got a little cushion or a pillow you want to put under your head and lie on your side or even your front, there's lots of options. And it's about just making yourself really comfortable so that you can focus on your breath and on your body. I'm going to suggest that you close your eyes now. And if you'd rather look softly at the ceiling, go ahead and look softly at the ceiling instead. And then can you take your awareness to your breath? Watching your breath as it enters and leaves your body. So I'm feeling the breath traveling in through my nose and it moving down into my ribs and lungs. And if it feels like it's helpful to you to place your hands onto your ribs and lungs so that you feel the expansion with each inhale and the retraction, the lungs, the ribs moving back towards the center of the body as you exhale. Then feel free just to place your hands lightly on to your ribs and lungs. So we're not trying to control our breath or really change our breath. We're just noticing it. And really that's what our yoga practice is all about. It's about connecting deeply with our body and with our breath so that we get to know ourselves better and so that we can feel more at peace, more at ease with ourselves. And so at any point during the class, if you feel like any of these movements are uncomfortable for you or even painful, then please do stop and just take an easier version of the pose that I will have offered previously, or even just rest and sit out that pose and then wait to join in with the next one. So we're going to bring this settling phase to a close. And from here, I'd like you to take your arms down by your sides and for everyone to come to lie on their back with their knees bent and their feet hip width apart. We're going to come into those pelvic tilts. So we'll be doing quite a lot of the poses that we did last week and we're going to add some new ones in. We're going to make a couple of poses a little more complicated. So hopefully quite a bit of this initial part of the sequence rings a bell with you if you've done the last week's class. So I'm going to rock forwards towards my tailbone, arching the lower back away from the floor, and then I'm softening my lower back and the lower ribs towards the floor. And if you want to add your breath into this movement, then I'm inhaling as I roll the weight forwards, cross my buttocks towards my tailbone, arching my lower back away from the floor. And I'm exhaling as I'm softening the lower back and the lower ribs closer down towards the floor. You can move as slowly or as quickly as feels good for your body today. And if it's tricky moving with your breath, don't worry about it too much. Just breathe naturally. See what feels good for your body. Let's go forwards and backwards one more time here. And as you come back through neutral, we'll step the feet just a little closer in towards your bottom. As you push your feet into the floor and reach your knees forwards, we're going to think about peeling up through your spine one vertebra at a time as you reach the hands up to the ceiling and all the way up over by your ears. And as you roll back down through your spine, through your upper back, middle back, lower back, we're going to take the arms back down by the sides of the body. So if you're like me and there's something above your head, feel free to just move yourself a little further down your mat so you've got space for reaching the arms all the way up over by the ears. So I'm really pushing the feet into the floor to help stabilize me as I roll up through the spine and reach the arms up to the ceiling and all the way over by my ears. And then I'm going to roll back down towards the floor, taking the arms down towards my hips. And as I roll up and down, I'm noticing, how do my shoulders feel today? Let's take one more movement here. And I like to inhale up and exhale down. But if you're moving a little slower than I am, maybe you're taking a few breaths up and a few breaths as you roll back down. Let's take the arms out to the sides now, out to shoulder height. And the arms and hands are down along the floor. Your feet are on the floor too. From here, we're going to roll the knees over to the right hand side as you turn to look towards your left arm. So it's a big twist. We come back through center with your knees and your head, then moving towards the ceiling. And then you take your knees to the left as you turn to look towards your right arm and right hand. And then bringing your knees and your head back through center. Let's do that once more to both sides. I'm taking my knees to the right as I turn to look to my left arm and left hand. And then I'm looking up at the ceiling and bringing my knees back towards the ceiling. And then taking my knees over to the left as I turn to look towards my right arm. And coming back through center. From here, I want to grab the belt that we talked about earlier. So whether that's a dressing gown belt or a sock or a yoga belt or a resistance band, I'll show you with a sock and with a belt. So as you lie on your back, you're going to hook your sock or your belt around the ball of your foot. You see that my sock is short, so I've got to kind of have my hands quite high up here. But if you've got something a little longer, like a resistance band or tie or a dressing gown belt, then you can just slide your arms anywhere along that strap so that it feels like your shoulders are really relaxed and comfortable here. I want you to have the belt around the ball of your foot rather than the arch of your foot or the heel of your foot so that we can really find the biggest stretch that we're interested in down the back of that right leg. And your leg might be quite far forwards, and that's okay. And maybe your leg is even bent, and that's okay too, especially if you've got a short sock. We're just going to take a few moments here watching our breath and noticing how the back of this right leg feels. So this is quite similar to our Warrior 3 pose we're going to do a little later on in the class. And it's a good way of figuring out how much flexibility we've got in the back of the right leg here. Because if you can't get your leg straight now, it means that when we come into standing balance later, there's probably going to be a bend in the knee too, and that's totally fine. So we're just interested in how the back of that right leg is feeling. Let's bend the right knee. We'll unhook the belt from the foot. Maybe you stretch both legs long for a moment and just compare the right and the left leg, and do they feel any different? And then let's bend the knees once more. And this time we're going to hook the belt around the ball of the left foot. So if you've got a sock, your hands will be much higher towards your foot. Maybe you're going to need a real bend in the knee. If you've got a longer belt, maybe the hands are partway down, maybe they are much lower down. You just play around until it feels like you've got the belt or the sock in a good position for you. And depending on your range of movement and the length of belt that you have, then we're aiming towards straightening that left leg, but it's okay if it is bent. And let's just keep the right knee bent because it's the beginning of the class and we want to make sure that We're making things not too challenging at the beginning so that we can really learn the skill and connect deeply with all the muscles and bones and tissue that is involved in helping to create the bigger movement later in the class. Can you soften your shoulders and relax your shoulders if they're a bit tensed and hunched? And can you connect deeply with your breath? Okay, let's bend the left knee. We'll unhook the belt. We don't need the belt again, so if you didn't have one, don't worry. We won't need that again. And let's stretch both legs out long. And again, let's just take a moment to check in with the legs. Do they feel any different? If the right side felt a bit longer or looser before, then hopefully both legs are a bit more even now. And then bending your knees once more, taking the knees in towards your belly and your chest, giving yourself a good rock from side to side, and rolling all the way onto your side and up into sitting. So if you've got a cushion or a pillow that you want to sit on, then feel free to sit on something comfortable. You can just sit on the floor as well, whichever is best for you. And from here, we're going to turn to look over your right shoulder, and then we'll come back through center. We're going to turn to look over your left shoulder, and we'll come back through center. And we'll do that once more in both directions. So if you're spending a lot of time at the minute on your computer in a kind of slightly hunched position, which is how I often end up doing computer work when I'm not paying attention to my posture, then this is a really great little sequence that you can insert into your everyday. Let's take the right ear over towards the right shoulder now, and back through center, and then the left ear over towards the left shoulder, and back through center. And let's do this a couple more times on both sides. So you don't have to do this whole hour class in between the weeks that we're practicing together. You can just find one of the little movements that you like, and you can do that on its own in isolation, and that will make a big difference. So once we've brought the head back through center, we're going to tuck the chin in towards your chest, and we're going to draw some little semicircles now. Taking your chin over towards your right shoulder and back through center, and over towards your left shoulder and back towards the middle of your chest. So we're just noticing, how does the neck feel today? Bringing your head back through neutral, we'll take the fingers onto your shoulders and we'll draw some circles with your elbows. So we're taking the elbows as close together as they go, and then as wide apart as they go. Closing the elbows towards each other and then opening the elbows out wide. And if you want to add the breath in here, exhaling the elbows towards each other and inhaling the elbows wide. Let's reverse the direction, taking the elbows down, out, up, and towards each other. Down, out, up, and towards each other. And one more. Okay, and then reaching the hands out in front of you and circling your wrists in one direction. And just noticing how your wrists are feeling today. Is one a little tighter or looser than the other? And then let's swap the direction and we'll circle the opposite direction. And then interlacing your hands and taking your forearms and elbows towards each other. And as you lift and lower your elbows, it creates this figure eight movement through the wrists. So again, I love all of this little sequence we've just done for helping to loosen up the neck and shoulders and wrists. And I tend to do this a lot if I know that I've got a whole day spent doing emails and admin at the computer. Great. Okay, so from here, we're going to roll over onto all fours. So you can move that cushion out from underneath your bottom. I'm going to take my jumper off. And I want you to take your knees under your hips and your hands under your shoulders. So as you come onto all fours, this is our neutral spine, where our head is in line with our heart and the pelvis. And this is the skill that we were learning last week that's helping us to find the support through the whole of the core so that we can come into our warrior three a little later. Let's lift the tailbone, softening the belly to the floor and lifting with your chest, neck and head into your cow pose. And then tucking the tailbone and lifting your lower back, middle back, upper back, rounding into your cat pose. So maybe you're just taking a few breaths here, or maybe you're moving a little quicker and you're inhaling into your cow and exhaling into your cat. What we're interested in is finding that connection through the whole spine. So I'm lifting the tailbone, softening the belly to the floor, lifting forwards with the chest, the neck and the head into my cow pose. And then tucking my tailbone and lifting my lower back, middle back, upper back, rounding into my cat pose. Let's do that one more time. Lifting your tailbone, softening your belly, lifting the chest, the neck and the head. And then tucking your tailbone, lifting the lower back, middle back, upper back, rounding into your cat. We'll come back through neutral, so you remember where that is, head in line with your heart and your pelvis. And it's this same neutral spine that we're interested in finding when we come into our downward dog. So we'll tuck the toes and lift the knees away from the floor, and you're sending your bottom up towards the ceiling and towards the back of the room. And I want to walk on the spot here a few moments just to stretch out the back of the body. So I'm going to bend that right knee and encourage the left heel closer to the floor. And then I'm going to bend the left knee and encourage my right heel closer to the floor. And if it feels like your hands or feet are too close or wide apart, then just move them until it feels like it's a little more comfortable for you. Let's come all the way back down onto the knees. And from all fours, I want to slide my belly, my pelvis down towards the floor. So I'm just going to bend the elbows and take my pelvis, my belly, my chest, my head down towards the floor. I'm taking the hands a little further forwards and out on the diagonal. And I'm reaching my legs behind here. Reaching the toes behind towards the back edge of the mat. Reaching my tailbone out behind me. Squeezing my bum just a little so that as I press into the tops of the feet, my pelvis and my hands, that helps to roll my head, my chest, maybe even my ribs away from the floor into this seal back bend pose. So because it's really tempting to lift the shoulders here, let's all do that on purpose. So can you scrunch your shoulders up by your ears, pinching your shoulders upwards as you press through the hands, the pelvis and the feet. And notice how that feels for your neck and shoulders. And the answer is probably not great. So the next time we come up, we want to do the opposite of that. Can you roll your shoulders down away from your ears? Really send the toes behind you, send the tailbone behind you, squeeze your bum a little, so that as you press through the hands, you're lifting more with your breastbone and your sternum, so the front of the chest rather than the shoulders. Shoulders are in this neutral position instead. Or roll back down. Let's do that a final time. So I'm inhaling up, pressing through the hands, the feet, pelvis, and I'm exhaling to lower back down. I'm going to slide my hands back in line with my ribs, my chest here. And as I roll up through all fours, I'm going to push my bum back towards my heels and my head taking down towards the floor to come into a child's pose. And maybe you stay here. If it's not great for your knees, you can always be a little lifted with your bum, with your head resting on stacked hands instead. So whichever version feels best for your body. We'll come back up onto all fours, so push your palms into the floor. And from here, we're going to come through a tiger cat. So it's really similar to this warrior three pose we'll do a little later in the class. So let's shuffle the knees and the feet towards each other. And we're trying to keep this neutral spine where your head is in line with your heart and your pelvis throughout the entire movement. We're lifting opposite arm and leg just as high as shoulder and hip height, and then we're going to lower them down. And then we'll swap sides and we'll lift the other arm and leg only as high as shoulder and hip height before lowering them down. If you want to add your breath in, we're going to inhale as you reach the arm and opposite leg up, and exhale as you lower them down. And then inhale as you lift opposite arm and leg just as high as shoulder and hip height, and lowering them down. So it requires quite a bit of balance. You might be looking at the floor down just in front of the hands. It's going to help your balance. And as you keep this neutral spine, all of those muscles around your core are helping to stabilize. Let's take one more movement here. And whichever hand and leg you lower back down, take your knees a little wider apart. Tuck the toes, lift your knees, hips go high. and you're back in your downward dog. Let's walk on the spot once more, bending the right knee, encouraging the left heel close to the floor, and then bending the left knee and encouraging the right heel close to the floor. And then really bend both knees deeply to pad your hands all the way back towards your feet at the back edge of the mat. Encouraging your head and your arms to be heavy, really bend your knees as much as you need to, and then very slowly rolling up into standing. So the head is going to be the last thing to lift as you roll all the way up. Once you're up and standing, taking your hands onto your pelvis, onto your hips, bending the knees just a little, and we're going to come into a neutral spine forward fold. So I'm tilting forwards, head in line with the heart and the pelvis as I lean forwards, and then I'm pushing through my feet to lift all the way back up into standing. I'm going to add the breath in now. So as I exhale forwards, I'm keeping that neutral spine, head in line with the heart and the pelvis, and then I push my feet into the floor to inhale all the way back up into standing. Can you work with your own breath? So you might be going slower or quicker than I am. You just work at a speed that feels good for your body. Great, so this is the same movement we're going to need in our that we have done in Downward Dog and that we're going to need in Warrior 3. Let's do it one final time, and as we stay there, I want you to notice that your shoulders and your hips, they're facing down towards the floor. And just see how your back feels. If you've got any concern about your back, just leave your hands on your hips. But if you want to challenge yourself here, you can reach the arms out to the sides to shoulder height. That's a bit of extra load in, and then push your feet into the floor to lift yourself all the way up into standing. Great, we're going to do the same thing in a high lunge. It's going to be a little bit more challenging. So let's step the right foot forward so that we're on the ball of the back left foot, and this right knee is bent directly over the right ankle. Let's take 3 shoulder circles here. So we're going to circle your shoulders forwards and up and back and down. And one more time. Forwards, up, back and down. Great. Taking your hands back onto your hips. It's exactly the same movement, but a bit more of a balance because we're on the ball of the back left foot here. So as I lean forwards, I'm leaning the head in line with the heart and the pelvis, and then I'm really pushing that right foot into the floor to help me lift back up into standing. You can leave your hands on your hips or you can reach the arms out to the sides, whichever feels more appropriate for your back and your balance. I'm exhaling forwards, and I'm inhaling back up. You might be working slower or quicker than me, that's totally fine. Exhaling, leaning forwards, neutral spine, inhaling all the way back up. I'm going to take both hands onto the hips for a moment here, and I'm going to really push into the right foot so that I can step that right foot to the back edge of the mat. Same thing on the other side. So I'm going to step my left foot forwards so that I'm on the flat front left foot and the ball of the back right foot. Hands are on my hips. And I'm leaning forwards. And then I'm pushing the left foot into the floor to lift myself all the way back into that high lunge. As you reach your arms out to the sides, this is optional. So you can always leave the hands on the hips if you prefer. Still exhaling forwards and inhaling up, or finding a breath pattern that helps you with the movement. We're learning this skill though, this neutral spine, head in line with the heart and the pelvis. One more time here, folding forwards and lifting back up. Let's take the hands onto the pelvis, really push through the left foot. We're going to step back onto into neutral standing. Okay, from here I'm going to turn to face you this way so that you can see me a little more clearly. We're going to come into Warrior 2 pose. So feel free to turn yourself around so that you can see me better too. And I'm going to take quite a wide stance here. So I'm stepping my feet wider apart, and I've got this right hip, right knee, right toes, all tracking in the same direction. So I'm mirroring you here, so hopefully it's a little easier to follow. The left leg is straight. So you can take your feet wider apart, it's going to make it harder. You can take your feet closer together, it's going to make it a little easier. Shuffle your feet until you find a position that works nicely for you. If you have a look at the right knee And you stack the right knee roughly over the right ankle. That's usually a good position for the rest of your pelvis then, which should be on a slight angle. From here, let's reach the arms up to shoulder height. Take a look at your hands, check they're roughly at shoulder height, and we're going to look over this right middle finger. So can you imagine, feel really strong like a warrior here, pushing through your feet so you feel that stability. And then taking your right forearm to your right thigh, I want you to reach the left arm either up to the ceiling or all the way up over by your ear, whichever feels better for you. You can look down at the floor to help with your balance, or you can look forwards, and again, just see what works best for you. Let's take 2 more breaths here. Can you connect deeply with your breath? Then let's look down at the floor and we'll push through that right foot to lift all the way into standing. We're going to pivot the right toes forwards and take the hands onto the hips. As you bend your knees and fold forwards, we're looking for that neutral spine once more. So we're going to keep the head in line with your heart and your pelvis, and you're just looking down at the floor. Everyone's going to fold a different amount here, but trying not to round the spine. And then pushing your feet into the floor to lift back up into standing. Let's pivot on the left heel, so we're turning the left toes out to the left-hand side now. We're just going to do that exact same movement that we did on the other side. So as I bend my left knee is over my left ankle, and my left hip, left knee, left toes, they're all tracking in the same direction. When my left knee is roughly over the ankle, usually it means that pelvis feels pretty relaxed in this position, but adjust your feet if it doesn't feel comfortable for you. You can take them wider or narrower. Let's take the arms up to shoulder height now, and we're in Warrior Two. So we look over the left hand. Again, can you really push through your feet into the floor so that you're starting to get a sense of the heels of the feet, the balls of the feet, the inner and outer edges of the feet, as well as your toes. And that's going to help you to stay really balanced and steady and strong, just like a warrior. As you tilt the left side of the pelvis down, the right side of the pelvis comes up. We're going to lean the left forearm onto the left thigh, and we either reach the right arm up to the ceiling or take that right arm all the way up over by the ear. We're in side angle pose. And let's take a few breaths here, just noticing the feet in particular, pushing the feet into the floor, connecting deeply with your breath. Let's look down at the floor and we'll push that left foot into the floor to lift ourselves back up into standing. We'll lower the arms down, turning the left toes forwards, so both feet parallel. If they're a bit wonky, just move your feet so that they are parallel. We'll take the hands back onto the hips, and this time we're going to do the same forward fold with a neutral spine, but with the arms out to the sides. So again, if your back feels like this is too much, you can just choose to have the hands on the hips instead. Let's bend the knees. We'll tilt from the pelvis, keeping your head in line with your heart and your pelvis, with that optional arms out to the sides. You can keep your knees bent or you can start to straighten the legs. Again, the choice is yours. Let's take one more breath here. And then let's bend the knees. We'll push the feet into the floor to lift yourself all the way up into standing, and we'll lower the arms down. If you need to give your legs a little shake before we do a similar sequence again, feel free to toe heel your feet together, give them a little shake, and then step them wide once more. So that same Warrior Two pose. I'm going to bend my right knee, my right hip, right knee, right toes, all tracking in the same direction. Straight left leg, arms up to shoulder height. And as I tilt the right side of the pelvis down, taking the right forearm onto the right thigh, I'm going to draw some circles with this left arm in one direction. Now, if your balance allows, then you can look at the hand as you draw those circles. And otherwise, just keep looking down at the floor to help with your balance. How is your left shoulder feeling? Let's swap the direction of the circles. Great, and then really pushing through that right foot to lift yourself back up to Warrior Two. We'll straighten the right leg, we'll turn the right toes forwards, and we'll take the hands onto the hips. So you've got 3 choices now. You can leave your hands on your hips, you can reach the arms out to the sides, or you can reach your arms up over by your ears. This is harder. This adds a lot of extra load in. So any back problems at all, you're going to want to keep your arms either out to the side or back down on the hips. Choice is completely yours. Let's bend the knees. We're going to fall forwards and either leaving your hands on your hips, reaching the arms out to the sides, or reaching the arms up over by your ears, whichever feels best for you. Let's swim the arms back towards the hips if you've got them out in front. We'll bend the knees, push your feet into the floor to lift yourself back up into standing. And we'll turn the left toes out to the left-hand side. Let's bend the left knee. So we've got the left hip, left knee, left toes tracking in the same direction once more. Right leg is straight. And the arms are up at shoulder height. Warrior 2 pose. Let's tilt the left side of the pelvis down. The right side of the pelvis lifts. More in our side angle pose. We're going to draw some circles here with that top right arm in one direction. Maybe you're looking at your hand as you draw the circles. Maybe you're looking down at the floor to help with your balance. See what feels best for your body. Connecting with that right shoulder. So just sending your mind into the right shoulder and seeing how it feels today. And then circling the opposite direction. And just noticing, how does this shoulder feel compared to the other? No judgment or criticism, but just curiosity. From here, let's push the left foot into the floor. We'll lift back up into standing, and we'll lower the arms down. And we're going to toe heel your feet all the way back in towards each other. Let's take some big shoulder circles there. Circling the shoulders forwards and up and back and down. And then let's swap the direction of the circle, circling the shoulders back, up, forwards and down. I'm going to close my window because one of my neighbour's dogs is very barky. Okay, so from here, I'd love us to move into a warrior 3. So we used the wall last week. We're going to do one go at the wall just to remind you how that felt, and then we'll have a go in the centre of the room. So if you've got a bit of wall or a door or a sofa, a chair, a bed, somewhere in the room that you're in, you can use anything that is just comfortably available where you've got some space to reach your leg behind. If you don't and you want to do this in the centre of the room both times, you're welcome to do that too. So if you do have quite a bit of space, then you want to take your hands onto your hip bones. These are the bony bits at the front of the pelvis. And as you reach your hands towards the wall or the sofa or the bed, you can walk your feet away from the thing that your hands are touching. And you want the inner edges of your feet touching too. So we're looking for this neutral spine once more. Your hands are in line with your head, your shoulders and your hips, and your feet are underneath your knees and pelvis. This is like downward dog we did before, but against the wall. I want to keep my hips and shoulders facing down towards the floor as I reach the right leg behind. And then I'm going to lower the right foot down onto the floor. And I'm going to reach the left leg behind. And then lower the left foot down onto the floor. Let's do that one more time on both sides. Hips and shoulders facing down towards the floor as you reach one leg behind and lower it down. And then reaching the other leg behind and lowering it down. We'll walk your hands back up the wall and come back towards our mat. So this neutral spine that we've been finding throughout the class today, that's what we're still trying to work with as we come into the balance. And for a moment in standing, it's head over your heart, your chest, over your pelvis. To help with our balance, we're going to start to roll forwards and backwards to the balls of the feet and then the heels of the feet for a few moments here. So in the centre of the room, your feet roughly hip width apart. We're going to roll to the balls of your feet, and then we lift the balls of the feet and the toes of the feet as you roll towards the heels. Your arms are just helping you to balance. So what we're trying to do is send our mind down into our feet so that we can really become more familiar with all of the parts of our feet. Let's roll over to the left-hand side and back through centre, and rolling over to the right-hand side and back through centre. so that we start to become more familiar with the edges of the feet. And then rolling on the diagonals towards your big toe, little toe, and the edges of the heels. And if you're like me and you're really challenging yourself, it's okay if you fall over. What we're doing here is we're just noticing what is available to us at the moment for us to be able to stay balanced. Okay, so as we come into our Warrior 3, we're thinking about that standing foot acting as like a tripod. So I'm going to show you my foot, bring it closer up to the camera. Here we go. So you can see here the ball of my foot, the big toe edge, the ball of the foot, the little toe edge. And if I lift it just a little higher here, you can see the center of the heel. And I'm thinking about that as being a tripod. So I'm going to step this right foot forwards in this, like the high lunge we did before. I've got my hands on the hips and I'm really pressing down through the center of the right heel, through the ball of the foot, the right big toe, and the ball of the foot, the right little toe, so that I'm creating a triangle between the big toe, the little toe, edge of the foot, and the heel. As I lean forwards, I'm trying to keep a neutral spine. So my head is in line with the heart and the pelvis, shoulders are square to the floor, hips are square to the floor, and my left leg is just reaching out behind. Then I'll place that left foot on the floor and I'll do the same thing with the right leg behind. So now I'm sending my mind down into this left foot and I'm finding the tripod of the left foot, the center of the left heel, the ball of the foot, the big toe edge, the ball of the foot, the little toe edge, so that I'm creating a triangle. As I really anchor into that standing left leg and left foot, I'm keeping that neutral spine. The head is in line with the heart and the pelvis as I reach the right leg behind. And then I'm going to lower the right foot down and come back through standing. If you find that tricky with the hands on the hips, you can stay with the hands on the hips, or you might find that actually the arms out to the sides helps you to balance a little better. So just play around and see which works better for you. I'm going to take my arms out to the sides this time. So I'm anchoring through the tripod of that right foot. I'm going to look down at the floor to find something steady to focus my gaze point on. And as I reach the left leg behind, I'm trying to keep a neutral spine as I lean the crown of the head forwards, head in line with the heart and the pelvis, and I'm reaching the left leg behind. And as I lift back up into standing, I'll lower the left foot down, take a moment there, before having a go on the other side. So I'm anchoring through the tripod of the left foot. Hands on the hips or hands out to the sides, looking at something steady on the floor, and starting to really slowly lean forwards into my Warrior 3. Keeping a neutral spine, head in line with the heart and the pelvis, as I reach that right leg out behind. And I'm going to lower it back down. From here, I want to take some big shoulder circles, forwards up, back and down. And again, this is one of those really easy movements just to incorporate into your everyday life whilst you're waiting for the kettle to boil or whilst you're giving yourself a quick break between emails. Great. So let's stand at the back edge of the mat. We're going to roll back down into that downward dog shape we did earlier. We're going to bend the knees. And we've done so much of this neutral spine, falling forwards. I want to come into spinal flexion now, which is the kind of deep curving of the spine instead. So I'm going to bend my knees, I'm going to tuck my chin in towards my chest, and very slowly, I want to roll down one vertebra of my spine at a time. Head is heavy, arms are heavy, slowly rolling down. And then padding my hands forwards, towards the front edge of the mat. And I come back into this downward dog. My hands are roughly shoulder width, feet are roughly hip width, and I'm walking on the spot. And I've got this neutral spine once more. So my head is in line with the heart and the pelvis. I'm looking somewhere towards the feet or the ankles or the legs. And then I'll lower the knees down onto the floor. So I'm going to add a slightly more strength-based arm movement in now. We've not done this one before. It's called dolphin pose. You might want to watch before you have a go. And just listen to your shoulders and arms. This is quite a challenge, so if it feels like or it looks like it's going to be too much for you, you can keep working with downward dog, and I'm really happy for you to do that. If you want to have a go at dolphin, have a look and then join in whenever you feel like you've got the hang of it. So I'm folding my arms here on the mat with the fingers towards the outer edge of the opposite elbow. Taking the forearms and the hands forwards, interlacing my hands, and I'm tucking the little finger into the cup of the hand so that I've got a really steady flat base of the outer edges of my hands. Tucking my toes, I lift the knees away from the floor so my bottom reaches up towards the ceiling. Now my head is not actually touching the floor. It's back in line with the elbows and it's just hovering a couple of millimeters away from the floor. Maybe you need to bend your knees so that you can really reach your bum back and up. The choice is yours. Just take a couple of breaths before lowering your knees back down onto the floor, releasing the interlaced hands and coming to rest in that child's pose. We're going to do that just once more today, and we will build on this over the next couple of weeks. So let's have one more go, and if you prefer to come back to downward dog, you can work with your downward dog instead, with the hands flat on the floor, tucking the toes and lifting your knees like so. If you want to work with your dolphin pose, folding your arms, taking the fingers to the outer edges of the elbows, interlacing your hands forwards, tucking your toes, lifting your knees, your hips go high into your dolphin pose. Your head is not touching the floor. You're still in this neutral spine, head in line with the heart of the pelvis, and you're rolling your shoulders away from your ears. As you really push the elbows, the forearms, the hands into the floor, hopefully you feel all that strength required in the arms and the shoulders to help you stay in the pose. Let's lower the knees back down onto the floor, releasing the interlaced hands and sending your bum back towards your heels and the head down towards the floor. This is our child's pose. Can you connect with your breath once more? Pushing your hands into the floor to lift up into kneeling. Let's stretch the legs around to the side and out in front to come into sitting. So if you want to sit on a cushion or a block, something like that, feel free to pop something underneath your bum, especially if you struggle to have legs outstretched and straight. Equally, it's totally fine to have bent knees here if you're tight at the back of the legs and the hamstrings. I want you to think about shuffling your bum further behind you, whether you're on a block or not, so that you find this tilt of the pelvis that we had earlier at the beginning of the class, the pelvic tilts. So this first forward fold we're doing, I want to forward fold with a neutral spine. And it means that we're probably not going to get very far at all, because I want my head to still be in line with my heart and my pelvis. So flexing your feet up towards the ceiling, that's the opposite pointing. And as you lean forwards, can you notice how far you can comfortably fold forwards with your neutral spine? Can you connect deeply with your breath? Starting to slow things down now, drawing our awareness within, really connecting deeply with our body and our breath. If your shoulders are all hunched and tense and tight, can you roll your shoulders down away from your ears? And then let's walk the hands back in as we lift back up into sitting. We're going to bend our knees and let's take the knees out to the sides so that the soles of your feet are touching and the knees are just kind of rolling outwards here. And again, depending on what feels good for your body and your knees, you might take your feet closer in towards your groin. You might take your feet further away from your pelvis and your groin. You get to choose whereabouts you'd like to place your feet. Maybe you want to hold on to your shins or your ankles or your feet. And this time we're going to round the spine. So we're not trying to keep that neutral spine, but we're going to round forwards, taking your head a little closer towards the floor. And it's just going to feel different. So this is our spinal flexion compared to that neutral spine that we've done a lot of. And it can feel really nice for the shoulders. So make sure your shoulders aren't hunched up by your ears. Just readjust your hands or try and relax your shoulders down if they do feel hunched and tense and tight. connecting deeply with your breath as it enters and leaves your body. And then as you inhale, coming back up into sitting, taking the knees in towards each other and reaching the legs out in front. So this is a good point to grab a cushion or a pillow or a blanket so that you have something handy to put under your head in a few moments. We don't need it just yet, but feel free to go grab yourself off your bed or a sofa nearby, a cushion, a pillow, a blanket, whatever you have handy in the room. And once you've got something, we're going to come to lie down on our back once more. So the easier option is to roll onto your side, your arm, and then rolling onto your back. And if you want to choose a more core challenging version, you can tuck your chin and tuck your tailbone and roll slowly down one vertebra of your spine at a time instead. So just like at the beginning of the class, we want enough room over your head to be able to reach the arms up towards the ceiling and over by your ears. Shuffling yourself down the mat if you need to. Can you take your feet hip width and your knees hip width? And as you push your feet into the floor, peeling up through the spine one vertebra at a time, reaching the arms up to the ceiling and all the way over by your ears. And we're going to stay here this time. So we're going to take roughly 5 breaths, but you might breathe slower or quicker than I do. And as you push your feet into the floor, can you reach the arms out behind you? Finding a position that feels comfortable for your back. So if this isn't comfortable, just roll straight back down and rest for a few breaths instead. And then everybody rolling down through your upper back, through your middle back, through your lower back, until your bottom touches down. We're going to do that twice more. So if it felt like it's too strong for you holding up at the top, then just keep rolling up and down instead. If you're happy to hold isometrically, then the next time you come up, again, really pushing the feet into the floor, reaching the hands behind you. Doesn't matter if they don't touch the floor. Just come to wherever feels available to you and take a few breaths here up at the top. And then rolling back down as you reach the hands up to the ceiling, taking the arms down by your sides. One final time with your own breath, pushing the feet into the floor, peeling up through your bottom, lower back, middle back, towards your upper back, reaching the hands all the way up to the ceiling and over by your ears, pushing your feet into the floor, reaching the arms behind you, keep breathing, and then rolling down one vertebra of your spine at a time as you take the arms down towards your bum and thighs. Let's hug your knees into your belly and give yourself a lovely rock here from side to side. And we're going to roll all the way over onto our left-hand side, taking a cushion underneath your head. So a cushion, a pillow, a blanket, whatever it is that you have handy and nearby. I've got my knees up in line with my hips, and I've got my top right arm on top of the bottom left arm. And from here, I'm going to come into a twist that's really similar to the twist we did at the beginning of the class and last week, but it's a little stronger and it's more focused on the shoulder. So I'm going to reach this top right hand all the way up towards the ceiling, like a big rainbow, arcing out up to the ceiling and out behind me. And it may or may not come down towards the floor, and that's okay. My head and my neck, they're rolling with the movement, and this top right knee is also just rolling away from the bottom knee. And then I'm reaching that right hand back up towards the ceiling and slowly lowering it down towards the left hand. I'm going to do this twice more. So working really slowly, imagining that hand is moving through treacle or water, so we're just finding a little bit of resistance as the arm reaches up and out and behind, head and neck rolling with the movement. Top knee maybe lifts away from the bottom knee. And then reaching that right hand up towards the ceiling and back towards the left hand. One more time. You work as slowly or as quickly as feels good for you. And you're just noticing, how does your shoulder feel? How does your spine feel? As you take the arm back and behind, and then taking the arm up towards the ceiling and back down. Let's come to lie on our back now for a moment. And again, maybe just compare that right shoulder to the left shoulder, noticing any difference. And then let's roll all the way onto the other side. So I'm going to flip myself around so that you can still see me, but you can just turn yourself so that your other cheek is down on the pillow now. So I've got my knees in line with the hips, and from here my right arm is on top of the left, and my head is just resting on a pillow. And you can put your head on a pillow, blanket, cushion, and then I'm going to reach the top right hand up towards the ceiling, and I'm going to take the arm all the way out and behind and down. And the top knee might lift away from the bottom knee. And then I'm going to reach the arm back up towards the ceiling and all the way back down to the bottom hand. Let's do that again twice more, reaching that top left hand like it's moving through treacle water, like a rainbow arc up to the ceiling and out behind us, lifting the top knee away from the bottom knee if that helps you to find more ease and comfort. And then reaching the top arm up and slowly releasing it all the way down. One last time. Reaching that top left arm up to the ceiling and out behind. Encouraging the head and neck just to turn with the arm movement and then lowering it back down. When your left hand comes on top of the right, you can come to roll onto your back once more, and we're ready for our Shavasana or relaxation. So if you have some socks or jumpers you want to put on, now is a good time to put those on. If you want some water, or if you want to turn some lights off, go ahead and do that. You can, just like at the beginning of the class, you can have bent knees here, you can have straight legs, especially because you've got that pillow under your head. It can feel quite nice to just curl up on your side. So have a wriggle, have a good shuffle, and take a few moments to make yourself really cozy and comfortable for our relaxation. I'm just going to grab some water. Okay. Once you've got yourself in a comfortable, cozy position, can you lie yourself and wriggle yourself, shuffle yourself into the most relaxed position that you can find. So don't be content with the first position you find yourself in. Can you make it super luxurious, really comfortable, so that it feels like your whole body can release and relax down into the ground beneath you? And once you feel like you've found that position, maybe that requires extra pillows, extra blankets, closing your eyes or looking softly at the ceiling. Checking that you're not clenching your jaw and taking a slight gap between your teeth with your tongue lying heavy on the base of your mouth. Taking your awareness into your whole body And just scanning down through your head and neck and shoulders, arms and hands, and seeing if you can invite all of the muscles and bones to settle down into the ground beneath you. Traveling down through the shoulders, the upper back, the middle back, the lower back, your pelvis. Noticing the parts of your back that are in contact with the floor and the parts of the back that aren't in contact with the floor. And again, can you invite all of your muscles, bones, and organs to relax deeply down into the ground? You holding on to any unnecessary tension. And if you are, can you invite those areas of the body that are feeling a little tense just to release, to relax, and let go. Taking your awareness down into your pelvis, your buttocks, down into the thighs, knees, lower legs, ankles, heels, feet and toes. And again, can you invite all of your lower legs to rest down into the ground, to relax. Encouraging your whole body now to settle down into the earth beneath you so that your whole body can switch off. We've done lots over the past hour. We've been in doing mode, and now is our chance to come into being mode. To really connect deeply with our breath, with our body, and with how we're feeling in this moment. How do we feel at the end of the practice today? And as you take your awareness back to your breath, maybe placing the hands onto the ribs or belly so that you can watch the process and feel the process of your breath entering and leaving your body. Maybe taking a few moments to be grateful for your body, for your breath, for the fact that it keeps you alive. It enables you to be able to do all the wonderful things that you enjoy doing. Can you be present with your experience of your breath, your inhale, slight pause, the exhale, and the still point. And if you're really happy here, you can stay here. You don't have to move. That is the joy of practicing from home. You can just stay as you are, settled with your body and your breath. And if you're ready to come out of the relaxation, then you can start to wriggle your fingers and toes. You can move your tongue around inside of your mouth, noticing any tastes in your mouth, smells around you, the noises inside or outside of the room that perhaps you weren't aware of before, the touch of your clothes and blankets against your skin, and this darkness behind your closed eyes. And just making some larger stretches that feel appropriate for you. That might be reaching the arms over your head, pointing and flexing your feet, or giving yourself a hug and a rock. And in your own time, you can roll over onto your side and pushing your top hand into the floor, you can slide yourself up into a comfortable sitting position. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time and your enthusiasm. Hope you have a wonderful week.
Thanks, Janine. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine.
Thank you.